Good morning and welcome to this morning's episode of the Amateur in the Morning. I'm your host, the Forex Amateur. Today's the 11th of November. Last time I did a recording, I think was on the 6th, last week, Friday or Thursday, somewhere there. Been very inconsistent in terms of the recordings this past 2 weeks because I don't know, I spent a lot of time out, which is bad. But anyway, we'll curb that and we'll try to be more consistent going forward for the rest of the year. I'll most likely be cutting these episodes off maybe around mid-December, right? So maybe around the 15th of December or the 10th of December, somewhere around there is when I'll do the last episode, right? Because honestly, I really don't want to do this throughout December and we'll probably pick up again mid-January because all my services will be closed. So let's talk about the charts for this morning, right? Before I get into the charts, let me just throw in my little disclaimer in there. Remember, I'm not qualified to provide financial, investment, or even trading advice. Everything I speak about on these episodes is purely my opinion on the markets, right? Any trades that I take is trades that I take with cash that I am willing to risk. So it's very important that if you make any trading decisions, you make it based on analysis that you've done and research that you've done, and ensure that if you make any trading decisions to take any positions, that you do it with cash that you are willing to risk, because the God's honest truth is that you could lose your entire investment because speculative trading is that risky, right? Now that we've got that sort of formality out of the way, let's talk about volatility 75. Now, the last time we spoke about volatility 75, I believe we were still trapped in this range in here. And I think, marked up a level up in here for you guys where I said if it comes up into this level, I'm looking to sell. If it comes down into this level, I'm looking to buy. As you can see, in terms of the analysis, nothing has changed. It did come up into that level, I think on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, and I did take a sell on there and I took it down quite a bit. And I've taken off most of my position at this point. I'm still holding a very small position because my overall bias is still to the downside. So looking at today, what's most likely to happen on volatility 75 is I'm expecting it to keep chasing the high of this candle, right? So most likely it's going to trade up a little bit more on here. Up into around there, say maybe the wick of this specific candle here to the left hand side. Let me see if I can grab this. Yeah. So maybe retest this wick of this candle right here, right? Before we see it melting back down and trading down, right? So that is what I think is going to be happening for the remainder of today, is we'll most likely see price reaching up for that level. The overall bias is still to the downside. So I want to see, I like the fact that it rejected like this after it broke the high. But if it does keep pushing up a little bit more, then that is fine. But on the lower time frames, I'm already seeing, good selling opportunities that I would like to participate in. So I'm looking at this area in here at the moment, this big rejection after price broke above these highs. So this big rejection in here. So I'm going to wait to see a presence of sellers, right? So an entry of sellers into here, and then I most likely enter on the retest of that specific level up in here, right? So we can see in here, price has already broken back into this range. So that's telling us that there's most likely going to be a lot of selling happening on these lower time frames, taking price down into this level here. But I really don't like to enter on the impulse. So I will wait for the impulse to trade down. And then when it pulls back into around these areas, that is when I'm going to get in on a sell, and I'm going to be targeting this pink zone down here as my first TP, and my final TP is going to be all the way down here in this gray zone on the daily time frame. So I'm long-term sell bias at the moment, probably for the remainder of this week, once we get a good confirmation on this chart. At the moment, we don't have confirmation, but there is evidence that we're most likely going to be seeing sales coming in, as well as we've got this trend line in here as well, where we've got one touch, two touches. We would expect at least a third touch to form in here. So this gray zone in here as well will be TP2. So I think I had TP1 somewhere down in here on my H4 chart. TP2 will be in here, and then TP3 will be all the way down here, right? Obviously, as price hits each TP, I will remove portions of my trades, and that is just my risk management model that I use in order to ensure that I maintain profitability at all counts, right? So there are instances where I take losses, where price hits my stop losses and stuff like that. But because as price progresses, I take profits, right? Even if it comes back and it hits my stop loss, because here I haven't moved my stop loss in profit on this sell that I took on VIX 70, on VIX 10. So even if it comes back and it hits my stop loss, I'll still be profitable in this trade because as price was progressing, I think I've taken profits 3 times on this trade already. So even if it comes back and hits my stop loss, it's hitting my stop loss at about, I think, 1% or less than 1% of what I was initially risking, right? So if it's less than 1% of what I was initially risking, then that means it's about 0.01% of my account. Because if I was risking 1% to make 3%, and as we progress, I've taken about 2% off on this trade, then that means essentially the risk now is 0.01. And no matter what happens, I'll probably still come out of this trade with a 1.9% gain. The math is a bit messed up, right? But it's something to that effect. I just didn't want to break my brain doing actual math right now in the morning. So let's look at volatility 10. Looking at volatility 10, the last time we spoke, I spoke about this level down here, right? And as you can see, price came down into here and it's bounced. So I'm currently on bullish bias. I'm waiting for it to come down into around these areas, and then I'm taking a buy back up into that level in there. So overall, currently, I'm still buy biased on volatility 10 until it comes down in here. We'll be looking for short-term sells and then look at buying back up into that area. I'm not really going to participate in the sell, so I'm going to be holding on for the buys, right? Because I am currently holding 2 sell positions on here. One position I took up here, the other position I took up here, right? So this one is in profits at the moment as well. So I'll hold this one all the way down into here, right? And then I'll look to go up thereafter. Let's look at the H4 time frame. All right, looking at the H4, it's also showing us a presence of sellers at this area. So I don't really have a clean chart that I can show you. Let's see if we can open up 8-hour chart to see the structure properly. Structure still not really clean here on the 8-hour chart, right? So we'll see how it reacts. My thought process now, looking at this 8-hour chart, is that we'll see price bouncing into here, so short sells into there, and most likely maybe go back again one more time up into retest this level, possibly pull back down into here, and then we'll look at those long buys back to the upside. So that's my thought process looking at the H8 chart. So I don't really look at the 8-hour chart, but just because of how messy structure is looking on the 4-hour chart, so let me have a look at the 8-hour to see what the 8-hour looks like. So it seems really, really good. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. 25-1S, last time we spoke about this, we were looking at this level here to see if we could get possible sells to continue this bearish momentum to the downside. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get those continuation sells, right? But we are still looking at possible selling opportunities on 25-1S. Overall, my bias on here has switched to bullish currently, where I am looking for, possible bullish signs. Not that I would participate in it, right? Because I'm still sold on the idea that we might get sells. But looking at the weekly time frame, we can see how bullish price is at the moment. So there is a higher probability that it's going to break above this high, and it's just going to keep going up into around this high that we've highlighted in here, right? So that is my thought process. We might see it just keep going. But if it does give good selling signals, even looking at the H4 chart, I had this level marked up where it's now reached this level. So if it does reject off this level and give me good enough confirmations at that level, then I'll most likely take sells from here. Yeah, this is actually still a very valid selling opportunity. I would actually take the sell right now if I wasn't on an episode. That is not a signal, by the way. Yeah, I would actually participate in this. So looking at that, I would say short-term selling opportunities on the H4, right, down into this zone here. And if it keeps going, then down into around these areas in here, these areas. Let me just grab my pin, right, down into around these areas here. and then perhaps look for a buying opportunity back to the upside, because I am buy bias on this market based on what I see happening on the weekly and daily, right? So based on that, I'll be looking for buys, but the H4 is showing a really good sell at the moment. So probably might be a good thing to participate in. See what's happening on the 5 minute. I don't like 25 1S because it's so messy on these lower time frames. All right, let's move on to volatility 50. Looking at VIX 50, I had this level marked up the last time I think we spoke. I had this level marked up after we got a bounce on the previous level that I had marked up on here, which was this level down here, right? So we got a reaction of this level that I had marked up here. I said we'll see buys, and we got those buys up. Now we want to see if we can get a continuation of these buys off this level. If we can, then will most likely take buys all the way back up into this level that I've been speaking about. If not, then we'll look for selling opportunities back to the downside. The reason I say that is because I looked at the weekly chart, and looking at the weekly, I anticipate the fill of this wick here, right? So as I always say, when I do see a big wick like this, it generally gives me a feeling that we'll most likely chase to fill this wick before price even makes a decision on anything else, right? So it can come down, fill the wick, and then bounce and go up, right? Or it can come down, fill the wick, and just tap into this gray zone and then go up. So that's my thought processes on VIX 50. So I'm actually not going to participate in the buy that I've been talking about on the daily chart here, right? All because I'm anticipating that it's most likely just going to drop a bit more. So I'll be watching this very closely to see if I can get buying opportunities off the down here or buying opportunities a bit lower, because this will be that wick that we're talking about on the weekly time. Right, so that's it. Not really much more I can speak about on the lower time frames on here, because we have to look at your setup time frame. You look at your setup time frame until you get evidence that price is respecting your analysis. Then only do you need to drop down to a lower time frame and start looking for confirmations, and then drop to a lower time frame and look for entries, right? So there's no point in me knowing that we're most likely going to come down into this level, and there's no point in me now dropping down to the H4 and H1 to see what's happening, because I need to see evidence on my setup time frame, and then I drop down to lower time frames to look for confirmations and entries, right? But something to keep your eye on is this volatility 75, right? And that is something that I'm most likely going to be trading over the next day if it does give me good confirmations. If not, then I'll most likely participate in the VIX 10 buy. So we're looking at those two charts at the moment. Other than that, not really much else that I am looking at. So that's it from my side. I'll catch up with you guys again tomorrow. So until next time, it has been a pleasure as always to share, and I am wishing you a blessed and a profitable trading day.